Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Bhaskatyade Sitarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Hare-rama, Rama-rama, Hare-Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asatara Sutushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Grangi Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskati. Om Jnana Timanandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chaksu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Bhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Turvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, no, Chapter 17, Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 17, the Divisions of Faith, text number 13. Vidihinam ashvistanam, mantrahinam adakshinam, shvara virahitam jagnam, tamasam parichakshite. Vidihinam ashvistanam, mantrahinam adakshinam, shvara virahitam yagyam, tamasam parichakshite. Vidihinam ashvistanam, mantrahinam adakshinam, shvara virahitam yagyam, tamasam parichakshite. Vidihinam ashvistanam, mantrahinam adakshinam, shvara virahitam yagyam, tamasam parichakshite. Vidihinam ashvistanam, anahinam idakshinam, shvara virahitam yagyam, tamasam parichakshite. Ladies. Vidihinam ashvistanam, mantrahinam adakshinam, shvara virahitam yagyam, tamasam parichakshite. Any other ladies? Vidihinam ashvistanam, mantrahinam adakshinam, virahitam jagnam, Vidihinam, without scriptural direction. Ashvistanam, without distribution of prasada. Mantrahinam, with no chanting of the Vedic hymns. Adakshinam, with no remunerations to the priests. Shraddha, faith. Virahitam, without. Yagyam, sacrifice. Tamasam, in the mode of ignorance. Parichakshite, is to be considered. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Any sacrifice performed without regard to the directions of Scripture, without distribution of prasad, spiritual food, without chanting of the Vedic hymns and remunerations to the priests, and without faith, is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. Faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually faithlessness. Sometimes people worship some demigod just to make money and then spend the money for recreation, ignoring the scriptural injunctions. Such ceremonial shows of religiosity are not accepted as genuine. They're all in the mode of darkness. They produce a demoniac mentality and do not benefit society. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Siddharne. At the end of the 16th chapter, Krishna had explained what is the difference between divine and demoniac, between the devas and the asuras. And although people have psychological tests to determine who's in what quality of nature, they have psychological tests to determine if you're schizophrenic, manic, depressant, or whatever. So many different tests, and then they categorize people according to these tests. But according to Bhagavad Gita, there are two different states of, generally two states of consciousness. There's material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. Material consciousness means that we identify ourselves with this body. Now, we may identify ourselves with a body we consider good. Like, for instance, in the forest, they have the deer. And in one movie, there was a deer called Bambi. You heard of Bambi? So people sentimentally, oh, Bambi, how cute. Such a nice deer, so affectionate. It loves its mother. And then we have the tiger who eats Bambi. How mean and cruel. The tiger should at least fast once a week and eat only fruit. Maybe its anger will go down. So in the forest there are so many animals. Some of them are nice animals, and some of them are not nice animals. But after all, they're all animals. That cute little cat that you're playing with, fluffy little cat that purrs when you pet it. If you were a mouse, and we could become a mouse, you would not find the cat very cute and fluffy. Especially when it sinks its teeth into you. You would kind of think it was a rather nasty little thing, or big thing. So everyone in this material world, whether they're an animal, good animal or bad animal, or a human being, everyone more or less is, from the spiritual point of view, not doing so well. As Srila Prabhupada used to say, we're good and everyone else is bad. We're good from the point of view that the actual aim of life is to realize Krishna and to realize our eternal identity. Everyone else is arrested by the illusory energy and put into a prison called the material body. Now in prison, some people may imagine that their prison, relatively to all the other prison cells, is rather well decorated. And amongst the prisoners, people may be envious. This man, he has such a nice prison cell. He has the best view of the prison yard from his cell. They even sometimes put on air conditioning in his prison cell. And we ourselves were in a low-class prison cell without air conditioning, and we have a terrible view outside our prison window. But after all, they're all in prison. Whether it's a good prison cell or not such a good prison cell, it's all prison. So similarly, we're all in a prison called the material body. And we're suffering the threefold miseries due to this body, which is one kind of misery, Adi Atmak. And then there's Adi Deva, due to the climate, because here we're approaching the summer and we're hoping that for a few days we'll have nice climate. In the future, maybe. There won't be so many clouds, and it won't rain so much, and it won't the perfect weather. But we know, even if we had perfect weather, soon they're followed by the clouds, the rain, and then we're back in winter again, and the cold, and whatever else comes. And then there's the Adi Bodhika, the other living entities. Even if there's no clouds, they'll seed clouds all over Ljubljana sometimes from the plains. They put clouds, artificial clouds, full of all kinds of toxins. So we may imagine we're in a good prison, but after all, ultimately, there are so many problems in any prison. And if the Adi Bodhika, Adi Daivaka, and Adi Klesha, the Adi Bodhika, Adi Daivaka, and Adi Atmak miseries were not enough, we have old age, disease, and death. That no one gets out of this world alive. So we're afraid of death, but death also means happy birthday. Because happy birthday is not very happy for the baby. Most babies, when they come out, welcome. We thought we would give you a little introduction to the world. One of many slaps you'll get in the future. And old age, no one is looking forward to old age. Oh, I can't wait till I get old, crippled. I always wanted to feel arthritis. Go blind and can't hear anything. I can't wait. No one wants to grow old, but no one can avoid it. And as far as disease, everyone's diseased. Look around. No one can sit up straight. We're always in disease, lack of ease. Half of us are taking shelter of the wall. The other was trying to come up straight. It's a fight for another 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So, the material nature is not very kind to us. And for us, the material nature means we're in this bodily concept of life, this prison. And some of them are better than others, undoubtedly, and some of them are not so pleasant. But all of them, ultimately, Krishna says, none of them are pleasant, because even Brahma, which has inconceivable happiness compared to ourselves, he has to die, and he doesn't know where he's going. On the other hand, there's spiritual life, which is full of bliss and full of awareness eternally, which is why we're here for, to experience that life. So Krishna says there are two lives. We're familiar with the first one, the materialistic life, quite intimately, and we're trying to get a little familiar with the spiritual life, so we can experience some other higher state of existence. And Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita at the end of the 16th chapter. He says basically, however nice it may be, but there are three states of consciousness which are actually not very good for us. Trivida narakasyedam dwaram nashitam atmanaha kama krodha tata lobhas tasmat etam trayam traget. There are three gates to hell, he calls them. Lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should become free from these three gates because they lead to the degradation of the soul or the self. Now, if we told people there are three gates to hell, lust, anger, and greed, how many people in modern society would agree with us? People actually think lust is very good. That's the spice of life. If they're not lusty when they get old, then they try to take some chemicals or whatever to try to become lusty again and enjoy life. And greed, the most important people of the world are the people who are most greedy. People are not coming to interview the poor devotee. My dear devotee, how did you become so poor? We'd like to know. No, they want to interview the billionaires. How did you become so rich and powerful? What is your opinion on this or that? Money sweeter than honey. So people are enamored with wealth and greed, because people can't become wealthy unless they become greedy. If you give in charity every day, whatever you get, whatever you make, then how are you going to become wealthy, materially speaking? And at the end of the life, when you can't use the money anymore, that you give it away in charity, then people glorify you. In the meantime, like someone like, I think it was the Rockefellers, he was so miserly that he wouldn't even, in his own little room, he wouldn't even provide heat. He didn't want to spend the money on heat to heat up his room. He was a billionaire, but he wouldn't spend a dime on his heating because he was too greedy. And when, of course, he left, or Carnegie gives away so much money to the libraries to teach people how to become greedy like he is, or he was. So these are the gates leading to hell, and they manifest themselves in different degrees in the three modes, of which ignorance is being explained here for a sacrifice. So when one is overwhelmed by lust and anger and greed, one falls into the mode of ignorance. And in the mode of ignorance, our activities become in the mode of ignorance. And our sacrifice, our charity, and everything else, as Krishna will explain in the 18th chapter, our knowledge, our intelligence, our determination, they're all according to the modes of nature. The soul, ourselves, we're always pure. We're aloof from all this. Just like if you're watching a movie, now we can identify ourselves with many characters in the movie. Sometimes we can identify ourselves with Twinkle-Bell. You know who Twinkle-Bell is? Do you know who Twinkle-Bell is? Nitya Seva? Ever hear of Twinkle-Bell? What's that? The good, well, say the good fairy. What's that? No, this is a movie called Peter Pan. Ever hear of Peter Pan? There was I didn't. I grew up deprived. I was deprived when I was little, so I never read the story, but I heard of the characters. I couldn't tell you what the story is, though. But there was the good fairy. You heard the good fairy. You heard the bad fairy?
I don't know. We didn't watch all this. Maybe this is from the TV show.
I don't know where it came from, but a good fairy was a good person. Say there's good people. Who's a good person? Who's an example of a good person? It's really hard to figure one out nowadays. Who's an example of someone who's good? Bambi. You heard of Bambi? No. And him. What's that? It was a deer, yes. Good deer. Deers don't harm anyone. They just eat grass. Because the grass gets harmed. Anyhow, there's good people, and then there's ferocious people. Mass murderers, whatever. You know, but actually the soul is just observing this movie and itself is aloof from the whole thing. But because it's cheering on the bad people, therefore it gets into the mode of ignorance. Because it takes as the leader someone who's actually in the mode of ignorance, then they fall into the mode of ignorance. And if they take as their leader someone in the mode of passion, then they fall into the mode of passion. And if they take as the leader someone in the mode of goodness, then they come into the mode of goodness. It's all according to the taste they have. If you're in the mode of ignorance, then you develop a taste for the mode of ignorance. In other words, and that's when, according to who we think is our leader, then we get a taste for that particular activity. For instance, if one is in the mode, if one doesn't have association with someone in the mode of goodness, or is already by his past activities in another mode of nature, mode of goodness seems rather boring. If we told a person in a mode of passion, please sit down and control your mind, they can't do it because they're too much attached to the ideas of trying to gratify their senses, and therefore they're not going to spend the time trying to meditate. So whatever idea comes to their mind, they want to fulfill that idea, and therefore Krishna arranges them to be always active. On the other hand, if one is in the mode of ignorance and likes to sleep, we all have that experience, that if we're tired and we want to sleep, then that's the greatest thing that we can think of. What we look forward to is to go to sleep if you're really tired. Isn't that right? But the greatest pleasure is when you're tired is to go to sleep. You don't think, I'm so tired, let me run around the block. No, you want to go to sleep. And if you're in the mode of goodness and you're actually feeling some relief, mental peace, and happiness, then when you see people in the mode of ignorance sleeping all the time like a bear, snoring, then you think, well, this is disgusting. But if you're in the mode of ignorance and you're sleeping like a bear, you think, oh, this is heaven. Similarly, if you're in the mode of passion, you're eating a handful of chilies with every meal. Then, and you're feeling more and more energy by doing so. You want to, every time you open your mouth, fire comes out. Puff the magic dragon. Then you actually feel it's great to be in the mode of passion, always doing something, never stopping. But for the person in the mode of ignorance, they think that's horrible. Why doesn't people rest? What is he doing? He's just going around putting everything on fire by breathing. Why doesn't he slow down and calm down? And the mode of goodness, they think this person's running around chasing his tail. He's just wasting his time. Building bigger buildings and then tearing them down after some time. Breaking and building. So these three modes, everyone who's ever in a particular mode of nature, they think that this is the best mode, this is where it's at, this is life. And then they associate with people in the bar who are expert. They know every type of mixture of alcohol, and they know every name and its effect. And that's education. And for a person in a mode of passion, he knows exactly what to bet on this, where to place his bets in the horse race or in the stock market, and make more and more money and spend his life just looking at his bank balance. His happiness is when his bank balance increases. He doesn't have time, as Prabhupada said, even to eat a piece of toast. He has no time. He's simply at his computer looking at the stock market, taking pleasure if the stock goes up or if the stock goes down, he feels depressed. There's nothing, he's divorced his life from reality, from even the basic things like eating or sleeping or perhaps even mating or defending. This whole thing in the mode of passion is just increased more and more money, more, I need more. As Howard Hughes, after he made his $16 billion and was the richest man in the world, a reporter asked him, what do you want now that you have all this money? $16 billion, like $160 billion. So he said, I want more money. Therefore, Krishna is explaining these different modes, and we can identify them, and the value of being the mode of goodness. But as the mode of goodness comes, Krishna says, Yakshastra vidim usrija vartate kamakarata tasasidim avatnoti nasukam naparam gatim. That one who rejects Shastra and acts whimsically, according to lust, anger, and greed, can have neither peace nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Therefore, tasmat shastram pramanam te karya vyavastito yatva shastra vidanokta karma kartum iharasi. One should know what's to be done and what's not to be done by the regulations of Shastra. And knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he can gradually become purified. In other words, life, especially human form of life, is meant to become purified from lust, anger and greed. And we do that by following the Shastra, by following Krishna's instructions. And the basic instruction is that this material world belongs to Krishna. And therefore we should dutifully utilize Krishna's energies in Krishna's service. Consciously is best, but even unconsciously following Krishna's directions is better than not following them. And then one will become free from this lust to try to enjoy and control the material nature, and therefore greed and the frustration due to the fact that we can't do it will not overcome one if one acts dutifully. But dutiful work has its limits because, especially due to bad association, we may not know what our duty is and what our duty isn't. It may become confusing when we get into the wrong association. Therefore, knowledge is also essential to keep us fixed in our actual duty. So Shastra is not only to tell us what our duty is, but why to do it and how to do it, and what the goal of doing our duty is. Therefore, if we follow Shastra, part of it is that we become free from ignorance by knowing what our duty is and what our duty isn't, and we become free from passion by doing the right thing at the right time in the right way and not becoming obsessed with the results, knowing well that everything belongs to Krishna, and therefore there's no reason to worry about what our results are, because we can't gain anything, and if we can't gain anything, we also can't lose anything. If you ain't got nothing, you ain't got nothing to lose, as the Mafia says. So if we don't own anything, then we have nothing to lose here. And if we have nothing to gain or lose, we have no anxiety. Could you imagine living life where you're not worried about whether you're going to gain anything or lose anything? You walk every day and just fix your mind upon Krishna, and whether you got $1 million or you lost $1 million made no difference, because we realized it's not ours. Whether someone said something nice to us or something not so nice, it wouldn't make any difference, because we're not this body. They're not directing it to us because they don't know who we are. And everything we have is under Krishna's control. Our very existence is under Krishna's control. Therefore, there's nothing to worry about, because Krishna is all good. So that kind of knowledge means that one can be peaceful and not run around trying to gain something and avoid losing things. Then one in the mode of goodness can peacefully think about Krishna, can focus the mind upon Krishna, not disturbed by fear in the mode of ignorance or by anxiety in the mode of passion. One can peacefully meditate upon Krishna and therefore become absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So the divisions of faith in this particular chapter recommend the activities in the mode of goodness and give the symptoms of the mode of goodness and what's necessary to act in the mode of goodness. And if we apply that in our lives, then ignorance and passion will go away. And when ignorance and passion go away, and we become comfortably situated in goodness, then we can very happily think about Krishna consciousness and see Krishna everywhere. See our best friend, our best well-wisher, our best benefactor in every aspect of our existence, therefore become happy and peaceful forever. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you were talking about the modes, and I was thinking we're distributing these books, and to read these books, people should be in goodness. And
yeah, we're not in goodness. We're reading the books, so you can try to read the books in any mode.
But most of the people, they are in complete ignorance or passion.
Well, not complete. They've yet to, the animal life is complete ignorance. They're on the way. Yeah, it's still, they could try to read it. I mean, people are not completely in ignorance. There's some people who are more receptive, and when they read the books, they understand what they're in, what the books are. They have more of a comprehension of it because they're more adopted to read such literatures, or their lifestyle is more sattvic. But most people are not. They're not capable of understanding this book. We're not capable of understanding these books immediately, completely. Therefore, we have these classes. So our book distribution is part of the process of introducing people to Krishna consciousness, but we should also give them some opportunity to get association with devotees who know more than they are, can introduce them to a lifestyle which will enable them to understand the books more. So it's only, we want to invite people to come to the temple, we want to give them good association, we want to give them instructions to those who are willing to take them, so that gradually they can become elevated in consciousness. That's how we got here. But of course, if we don't have a program for new people, and the new people who come, we don't have a program to engage them in a way during the week also, not just on 1 day or 2 days. Could you imagine if you lived outside and once a week you read the Bhagavatam for half an hour? What would your life be like? It means the rest of the 7 days and 23 hours and 30 minutes you are in Maya. What are you going to get from the Bhagavatam? So we want to introduce people to a lifestyle so that it becomes part of their life. And then they can make progress, tangible progress. Otherwise, what do we expect? If they don't have devotee association, they're not receiving transcendental knowledge, of course they're going to be in ignorance. And if we stop receiving transcendental knowledge and having devotee association, shortly we'd be in ignorance again like they are. Actually, when the devotees leave the Hare Krishna movement and they go out on their own, when they reject the movement, then they usually fall into worse Maya than the ordinary people do. Because they're trying to forget Krishna. So they make an extra effort for sense gratification to cover over their consciousness. So the purport is we should be happy we can give someone a book because at least for a moment or a minute or whatever, they're under the spiritual energy because they're engaged in Krishna's service. But then we should try to make a programs so that we can teach them how to engage in Krishna's service more often. And if we do that effectively, we'll be in Krishna's service more often too. Engaging others in Krishna's service will also engage us. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he engaged his entire existence in trying to engage others in Krishna's service. That's why he was so ecstatic. Besides being God, which is an advantage too. But he had an intense desire to give others Krishna consciousness, so because he's Krishna, he gave himself intelligence how to do it. Anything else? Yes.
Also related to this, I mean, if most people they are in ignorance and passion, then they are not so much attracted to devotee association. So how can we?
Well, be nice to them. Even snakes are nice. If you're nice to a snake, that's not a good. At least if you're an elevated devotee, like what was his name? The one who, Saranga Thakur is one example, but he was a disciple of Saranga Thakur. He was so Krishna conscious that he'd go into the forest and put snakes on his lap and play with them. And he'd go into the forest and find tigers and slap their faces. And sometimes he was underneath the water for 3 days, unmindful of what was going on, just meditating on Krishna. So we're not on that level, but what's that?
It's possible.
Yeah, for some very elevated devotees. But it's not exactly what we're trying to show as an example. In any case, these people, if they're people in general, it's possible that they can get devotee association and become purified, like we've become purified to some extent, and make advancement. They may not like it at first. No, some people like it. They like devotee association. That's why they come. We just have to be nice enough to them. We have to become Krishna conscious enough, and then we'll be a little. Krishna will empower us to become a little attractive, like he is. People are attracted by love. Well, first of all, they're attracted if we appreciate them, we accept them and appreciate them. Then they'll accept us and appreciate us too. It's the reciprocation. They want love, they want appreciation, they want acceptance. And if we give it to them, then they'll be appreciative of it. They'll take shelter of Krishna. They're singing about love, they're singing about appreciation, but they can't, the Hare Krishna movement should be a place that they find it. Otherwise, it's a long search in the material world nowadays. As the Beatles sang, where are all those lonely people, I think? That was one of his songs. What's that? All the lonely people. Where they all go. Where all they come from, is that? A lot of lonely people out there. Hopefully there's not too many lonely people here too. Hey, thank you very much. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
both.